Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to Always Accurate Weekly. I am your host, Hope Murray. As we all know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Our topic of discussion today is addressing your mental health doesn't mean you're mentally weak. To help us navigate this discussion with professional guidance, please welcome Dr. LaShina Smith Brooks. Dr. Brooks is a licensed professional counselor and owner of Intentional Intervention Counseling Practice. She has over 20 years of experience in the counseling profession, specializing in working with youth with mental and behavioral problems. Dr. Smith Brooks' motto is, "My life is God's gift to me. What I do with my life is my gift to God." Dr. Smith Brooks, welcome.
Why, thank you, Hope. I'm glad to be here.
Great. It's a pleasure to share the platform with you. So, listen, let's jump right on this thing. I understand that we are all busy. We wear many hats, so taking time for ourselves, often get placed on the back burner. Help us understand what mental health really is and how can we recognize its triggers.
Okay. So first, let me say that I count it an honor to be here. Thank you for this opportunity to use your platform to speak on mental health awareness. So we all have mental health, whether it's good or bad. Everyone has mental health, just like we have physical health, financial health. That's just a part of human life. There are times when we take on a lot or we experience a lot that causes our mental health to suffer. People may develop a mental health disorder because of some type of trauma. It may be triggered by drugs or alcohol use, or it may be something they're predisposition to genetically. So how we maintain our mental health is very important. Like I said, it's something that we all have, and it's up to us individually to make sure that we're maintaining a positive mental health.
That's very good. Very good. I never heard it put quite that way. I want to take a moment to welcome Miss Regina Strother and Miss Jessica. She's a health nutritionist. We'll get to her a little later on, but she's into fitness and wellness. Thank you guys for joining. They both said good afternoon and good evening. So, Dr. Smith, what are some challenges that people with mental health usually face?
I would say one of the main challenges is the stigma that's associated with mental health. That causes people not to want to seek treatment because the characteristics that people place on mental health that causes people to feel embarrassed or shame to acknowledge that, hey, something is not quite right with me. So first and foremost, the stigma against mental health causes people not to seek proper treatment. There are times when, especially in the African-American community, it's taboo to seek therapy. So we push, everything but therapy, especially if you're a religious person. It's all about spirituality, seeking God. You're weak in your faith. Something is going wrong. Like Job's friends told him, you're sinning. Something's going on. But that's not necessarily the cause of you struggling mentally. So we just have to, be aware of what we're experiencing, be mindful of the signs that our body is giving us when we notice changes. We got to be aware of it and be intentional about making sure that we're keeping up, with our, daily routines, with our exercises, being able to balance our obligations and things of that sort so that things don't get out of whack.
That's very good because, it's very unfortunate that people consider admitting to or seeking help, for mental health as a sign of weakness, when actually it's a sign of strength and resilience.
Yes.
Because perfectly normal people have mental health experiences. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden your normacy has gone away. Because correct me if I'm wrong, mental health can be simple stuff like just stressors or depression and things of that nature, correct?
Yeah.
Some people experience a stronger level of it, but it could be something simple. You're overwhelmed, the loss of a loved one or a parent being sick. Anything can trigger it. You are not alone. It happens to all of us, and I want to take a time again to welcome Miss Letitia Williams. She says, good evening. And Miss Regina Strother has a question that I'm going to pose right now. She says, how do you talk to your child about mental health and that would make them open up to anyone, if anyone at all?
I think just being honest about the things that you're seeing, making them aware of it, because with the kids that I see, oftentimes when I ask them, do you know why you come to therapy? Most time their response is, I don't know. And so I try to encourage parents, like before you send your child to therapy, have a conversation with them so that when they come to counseling, they are aware, okay, this is the problems that, is being observed by others. I may not be aware of it, but just having a conversation, like, I noticed you're not eating as much. You're staying in your room a lot more often. You're not coming out as much. You're not as talkative. You're a little bit on edge. Just pointing out those signs that you're starting to see, and then be like, hey, I think it might be a good idea if we go talk to somebody. A lot of times kids won't open up to their parents, but they'll open up to somebody else. So just, being honest about, the signs and symptoms that you're seeing and bringing it to their attention.
Right. We're starting to see a lot of that in the youth now today. Back in the adults of old, like my mom and maybe your mom, they knew immediately when something was going on.
Right.
But kids now, there's social media, they go to their room, they kind of like hang out. And because when kids are done with their homework, it's like, hey, I get to play on my phone. So you're thinking, okay, are you done with your homework?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, cool. And you're thinking, oh, they're doing the normal thing. They're on the video games, or maybe, this little chat time with their friends. But in all actuality, they're dealing with something. And we got to take time to bring it to the table,
Yeah.
And we mentioned in another conversation a couple of weeks ago with Miss Govan, you got to be intentional. Bring them to the table. Let's have some time where you put the phones down.
Right.
Let's talk to them. Hey, any new friends, any new company? You just never know what you're dealing with. So statistically, how many adults will experience a diagnosable mental health illness in a given year?
So according to NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Health, they've noted that 1 in 5 adults will experience a mental health disorder every year. So that's 1 out of me and my 5 siblings. So one of us may experience a mental health disorder. So it's very common. And that's what people need to understand. It's very common. And going back to the stigma of mental health, like we make it hard for people to acknowledge that I have a problem or that something is not right. Because, we call them crazy or something is wrong with them, or, just make it very embarrassing for them to acknowledge that I'm having a hard time dealing with my emotions. And so I try to make it plain, like to parents and to kids to understand, like when we experience problems physically, we go to a medical doctor. So it should be no difference with our mental health. So if I'm having problems singing, I go to an eye doctor. Or if I have problems with my blood pressure, my cholesterol, I'm going to go to my primary doctor. So if my emotions are out of whack, if I'm overwhelmed, if I'm having thoughts of hurting myself and everything is going haywire and I can't manage, then I need to go talk to somebody about my emotions. So, and that would be a therapist or a psychiatrist. So we have to normalize, going to seek help. I was reading in researchers talk about person-centered conversations as far as how we identify people that have mental health disorders. They may say, she's bipolar or she's schizophrenic. No, the correct and empathetic thing would be to say is a person with a bipolar or a person with schizophrenia. We don't walk around and saying she cancer or she diabetes. So it's all about the words that we use to make people feel like, okay, this is normal, it's common, and it's okay for me to seek help. So it's all about the language that we use and making it comfortable for people to be able to come forth and say, I need help, because there's a lot of people that's suffering in silence and they don't open up because of fear of being embarrassed or shamed.
I think that is so profound, very, very, very profound, because I never really thought about mental health against the physical health. You got a headache, it goes on for a couple of days, you go see your primary care physician. And even from that level, if they feel it's something, if I think back to my childhood days when I was ill, my mom started with a primary care physician. Mm-hmm. When it got to a point where he couldn't handle it, then another specialist came in. And it's the same type thing. You may go to a doctor and he may have to send you someplace else. It doesn't mean that you're that bad off. It's just mean you're out of the scope of that particular physician, of that practice. Miss Myla Kay, thank you so much for joining. Miss Mary Jeffcoat, thank you so much for joining. And Miss Latoria Pack, thank you guys so much for joining. Miss Myla Kay says, great advice. Latoria Pack, she says, that is so true. I'm sorry, Miss Myla Kay says that is so true. One other point I want to bring out was it's very, very, very fortunate now that the attitude towards mental health is changing. Mm-hmm. We have prominent figures in sports, entertainment, politics, and other arenas that's coming forth even announcing, hey, I had to pull away. What's her name? Osaka, Naomi Osaka. She's a tennis player. I love tennis, you guys. You know, she pulled away from tennis for a while because she said she was experiencing some mental health issues, you know, and rest in peace. But Miss Naomi, was it Naomi Judd?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what her children said. She was dealing with some mental illnesses. And a lot of times when we are here from South Carolina or from the small states, we'll be thinking we're the only one that's dealing with this. But no, we got millionaires out there, basketball players, you know, singers. They too have experienced, they're normal, just like you and I, you know. So what type of assistance is available for people who want to address their mental health issues?
So if you're a person of faith, of course, you know, I don't knock seeking counsel from your pastor. My shirt says pray and seek therapy. So it's a combination. So yes, if you want to seek counsel from your pastor, yes, that's good. But if you're still struggling, if your faith is where it's supposed to be and you're still struggling, that's not a sign that your faith is weak. That's a sign that, okay, I need to go see a professional. So you may go to a private therapist. You may, if you have a child that's in school, most of the mental health centers, community mental health centers, have school-based counselors. So there should be a mental health counselor in almost every school across the districts here in Richland and Lexington County. So there are school-based mental health counselors. You can go to your pediatricians. Sometimes there's pediatrician offices. They have counselors that's on staff there that you can seek the counseling there at the office, or they may refer you out. So it's always somebody there to help. And even if you don't seek professional help, sometimes you just need somebody to listen to you. Sometimes you just need a healthy outlet. So it could be a mentor, it could be a coach, it could be another parent, another family member that you're close to. So if it doesn't reach the extent of seeking professional help, but just looking within your circle of support of who can I go to if I need to get, you know, if I need to vent, if I need to express, or if I need clarification on some things that's going on in my life.
You know, I think that's a hard part for adults and children. It's hard to find a confidant these days. And I'm not even talking about a professional. You know, sometimes when you tell a friend something and the next thing you know, you're hearing it back again, it's like, I can't trust anybody. And we have a tendency to shut down. You know, I had a girlfriend that reached out to me some time ago. It's probably been about 5 or 6 months ago now. And I was in a meeting. One thing about me, every time someone reaches out to me, be it if it's my parents or a cousin or a friend, if I'm busy, I'll always answer and say, are you okay? You never know what someone is dealing with.
Yeah.
And when I asked her, she said, yes, I'm okay, but be sure to call me back. And I did call her back. But you know what she said to me when I called her back? I was contemplating suicide.
Oh my.
You know, and I was in a meeting at work. Immediately, I was like, should I get off? Should I go? Should I be there? She was like, but you said you was call me back. And I could hear that call in her voice, like, yes, call me back. I'm telling you, sometimes I can be tired, but if my phone ring, I try to clear my voice and say hello, just to make sure. If they call and talking, you know, funny stuff, hey, holler at me after 8 o'clock in the morning. It's totally different, you know.
And speaking on that, sometimes you're somebody's last lifeline. So you were her lifeline. So we can't be so busy and so caught up that we can't respond or answer the call, because people who are experiencing, you know, major depression, who haven't learned how to balance stresses of life, and they're at that place of contemplating suicide, sometimes they're looking for a glimmer of hope. And so you may be that hope for somebody. You know, it may be a kind gesture or just speaking a kind word to let that person know, you know what, this moment will pass. It's going to get better and they can get through it. But, you know, it's very heartbreaking when you look at, you know, people who seem to have it all, people who are in, you know, high positions and people of prestige that end up dying by suicide. And you're like, well, what in the world? Like, what could be that bad that you would take your life? Like, you got all this money, or you highly esteemed, but, you know, I was reading up on the Judd, the lady that died by suicide,
Naomi
the country
Judd.
singer, and it was, you know, talking about, you know, how she was just in a dark place, and I've heard that from people who have, you know, experienced, you know, almost attempting suicide, where they just felt like they were in a dark place and they were in a hole and they couldn't see any light. So we have to be that light for people. Like, we see it all the time. Like, you never know what somebody is going through. You never know when you might do something or say something that's going to push them on the edge, off the edge. So we just got to be mindful, be kind to people.
I couldn't agree with you more. Miss Regina brings to my attention that Simone Biles was one. She was a gymnast. She came out citing, mental health issues as well. And Gina also says that it's not always a spoiled child wanting to have their way. Sometimes they just really need someone to talk to. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we have a tendency to size people up. Oh, they're just spoiled, or they're so used to having what they want. But we have to know the difference. When we give our children what they want, we have to know the difference in this is not normal. Yes, I got them the shoes. Yes, I got them the outfit, but it doesn't seem to be working. Mm-hmm. That's when you pull them aside, and that's when we have these conversations, because I'm telling you, they can be great today and bad tonight. It's not necessarily tomorrow, and bad is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying the change in the person, it just happens ever so quickly. And we just have to be mindful of. That's why I started off with triggers. You know what I'm saying? I understand that the person may be dealing with it in their mind, but it's my hope that they show a sign that's just not normal. And I can get with somebody and be like, no, this is different. This is different than little Johnny being spoiled.
Right.
Little Johnny is crying for help, and he doesn't really know how to walk up to someone and say, help me.
Right.
He doesn't know how to do that. So we have to, as adults, we have to be prepared, especially the adults in today's time. Like she said, like Dr. Smith Brooks said, we got to start these conversations, but more important, we have to be open. Mm-hmm. Don't let the doctor be the first one to tell you. Can recognize it, but you need to have a conversation before you go to the doctor, so you can give some insight and say, hey, I've tried, I took the phone away. That made it worse, but when they kept the phone, it didn't make it better, so we got to have it got to be some type of plans. And for those of us who are working, I know like in state government, there's a program called EAP. Mm-hmm. I think it's the Employment Assistance Program. Mm-hmm. They have, and I think you get so many free sessions before you actually have to start paying.
Paying out of pocket. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, paying out of pocket. So there's a lot of different resources out there, So we got to definitely jump onto it and, be more proactive than reactive, So Dr. Smith Brooks, outside of assistance, so in your profession, have you been able to just spot someone who's just looked like they're dealing with something, try to talk to them and see if they would like talk to you and tell you more about it?
I would say yes. Particularly with the kids that I service, if they tell me everything is okay and there's no problems, everything is fine, and I'm very observant of body language. And, they have this thing to say, well, you can tell if somebody's lying by the way the direction of their eyes. Like, I found truth to that. Because I can ask my kids something and they'll be like, yeah. And their eyes, every time I ask them, their eyes go to the left. And I'm like, there's something ain't right about that. So if everything is okay, so why are we still meeting? And then there's some kids who, and it may be adults too, who kind of like are withholding information until they see that they can trust me. So they may tell me bits and pieces, and it's like peeling the onion sometimes. So just trying to develop and establish a rapport with them to help them get to the point where, I feel like that I'm in a safe place to open up and share with you what's going on. But I'm simply asking, how you doing? And try to ask open-ended questions. Where they're required to give you more than a one answer response, whether more than, a yes or no. So be asking, how was your day? Tell me something about your day. Mm-hmm. Not just asking, did you have a good day? Because that's either yes or no. Sometimes I don't know. Tell me something good that happened today. What was good about your day? So asking open-ended questions to get them to open up and get into a dialogue about what's going on and what they're experiencing.
Right. You mentioned adults, and Miss Latoria Pack says also our elderly population as well. I'm not exactly sure what she meant, but I want to say something, Latoria, and you can expound on more if you like. A lot of time we're looking for the mental health amongst our youth when adults are really going through it as well. And I'm assuming that's what she's talking about when she said our elderly population as well. A lot of times we get so grown, we as the children, and it doesn't have to be this way, I'm just taking it this way, that we can mistreat the elderly people, and then they're all stressed out. We got grandparents raising youth We got grandparents that's, our elderly that's still trying to assist their children that's in their 30s and 40s, and they're doing the best they can, but we're stressing them out because we think they should be doing more for us.
Right.
And that may not be the case, but I'm just saying they experience it too. We got to realize when our family members start shutting down, our older people, I understand they're going to rest a little more, but when they're always reserved, going to bed early, not eating, we got to recognize those type things.
And also, and in addition to that, just oftentimes they get to the point, especially if they're sickly, they get to the point where they start feeling like they're a burden. So it's better for me not to be here or put the stress on my caregivers or my children. I don't want them worried about me. So then they become depressed and down. And so just being mindful of taking time to spend time with them, stopping by, dropping a phone call, putting a card in the mail to let them know that, somebody's thinking about them. You're not alone. We love you. But sometimes that loneliness will set in, and then they start feeling like that they're a burden on their loved ones.
Right. And Miss Latoya did confirm. She said, yes, I literally agree with I agree that the elderly definitely need to be checked on their mental health as well. Yeah, most definitely. Because a lot of time, and it may not be somebody, it may be the simple fact that they don't have anybody. You know what I'm saying? Having to go into a nursing home or something like that, thinking, I don't want to put that pressure on anyone, or I don't want to be a burden on any. I got a segment coming up in a few weeks concerning that. That's been coming up a lot about the elderly. And we definitely want to look out for our elderly, be it if it's mental health, be it if it's medical, whatever it is. It's funny that when I think about it, I had a birthday last Wednesday on the 11th, but she had one on the 5th. So happy birthday to us. But, when I think about it, I'm 48 now. So that makes my parents, in the mid to upper 70s. And thank the Lord they are around, but they're moving a little slower. Yeah. I'm grateful that they're still here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I got to kind of think, even if I consider moving, I can't go but so far.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I got to be able to respond. And I would pray and hope that each and every one of us that have living parents, that we're thinking about their future. We're thinking, just asking, make sure somebody could have knocked on the door and scared them and made them frightful. We have to look out for them. Yeah. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dr. Smith Brooks, do you want to share some information about your counseling business, your service that you own?
Certainly. So as you noted at the beginning, my counseling practice is intentional intervention counseling practice, where it was intended for you to be a better you. So I am paneled with Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance, and I do accept self-pay. And right now we are doing telehealth sessions. So sessions virtually are available. My email address is intentionalintervention@gmail.com. You can reach out to me via email if you're interested in additional information. I primarily work with children and adolescents. I've branched off to some young adults. I do have a few college students that I work with that's kind of like helping me hone my skills. So, but primarily my population of choice is children and adolescents, but I can do young adult.
Oh, that's interesting. Tell me again, what's that slogan again? Where you are intentionally
a better you. Where it's intended for you to be a better you.
I like that. You haven't put that on a t-shirt yet?
I have not.
What's the problem?
Right. Yes, you gotta be intentional about trying to better yourself.
Listen, 2 weeks ago, I was talking to Miss Govan about on a subject, as adults, are we failing our youth? And as we was bringing that to a close, one of the things I said is we got to be intentional. We got to make conversation. Yeah. Intentional is just the thing right now. We have to be intentional. It may be happenstance, but it has to happen.
It does.
You know what I'm saying? It can be, I was riding down the road, I made a U-turn and said, nope, I need to stop right now. These things do happen. So Dr. Smith Brooks, I'm telling you, we probably could go on and on with this conversation. And you guys, don't quit asking questions. Even when we log off, if you guys send us questions, we will get you an answer, or you can email her directly. We'll be sure to put that email address in the description at the bottom if you want to send some information to her. But I really appreciate you coming on, helping me navigate through this.
My pleasure.
Because I'm telling you, I could not have done it without you. I come up with these thoughts, but I want to make sure I reach out to someone who has more knowledge because I'm here to help the people, honestly.
Right.
I would pray and hope that if I were to call you and if you can't help me, you'll be like, I got a friend who
Right.
knows somebody who can do it. That's what it's all about, loving the people and helping the people. And honest to God, I am not perfect, but I love people.
Yes.
And believe it or not, each of you that are listening, I love you, contrary to popular belief.
Yeah.
But before I leave, first of all, Dr. Smith Brooks, you have anything else you want to say before we close?
Oh, are we going to discuss some tips? You got some handy tips?
Let's go
for 'em?
straight to the tips. You got some tips for him? Let's give it to him.
Practice self-care. That's my biggest thing. Self-care. What makes you feel satisfied? What makes you feel better? What's a pleasurable activity for you that's going to help minimize your stress? We all have what they call stress buckets. Some of us have little buckets, some of us has medium buckets, and some of us has large buckets. But your self-care practices will determine how fast your stress level rises and whether or not your bucket overfills. And I was posting on Facebook this week that my stress bucket was almost at the top. It was about to tip over. But my self-care is getting home and getting on my couch and putting it up my recliner and watching TV. And my water level went down. My stress level went down. So you got to make sure you're practicing self-care, be it a hobby, any kind of enjoyable activity, exercise, eating healthy, and exercising grace. Being graceful to yourself, giving yourself a pass sometimes.
I love that. I think I'm going to implement that. You know, a lot of times we do things by doing it, but we have to close our mind and be like, finally, like this is my moment. It's kind of like that prayer moment, you know, but prayer has its place, but then there's that time where you come and rest it, you know, no TV,
Right.
however you want to do it, light music, whatever. But I like that. I think I'm going to implement that. Well, I just want to give some thanks before we close out to Miss Regina Strother, Miss Jessica, Miss Letitia Williams, Regina Strother again, Mary Jeff Code, Myla Kay, I think she said her name was Linnell Kelly, Lateria Pack, Ashley Jones. She said, this is good stuff. We thank you guys so much. And if you guys have a topic that you may want to hear more on, send that to me. Hit me up on Facebook and say, hey, I got something I want to discuss. I want to come sit on camera. Can you give me a platform? Yes, I can. Let me know that you want to come. I'm telling you, we can make it happen. We want to reach the people. You know, I'm sorry, Miss Shawnette Lloyd intended to be a better you. Okay, yeah, she said that's part of your thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that's all the people, and that's Milo again. You guys, Dr. Smith Brooks, I cannot thank you enough. I really, listen, this chick lives around the corner. I'm telling you from it. And this is probably the longest in about 15 years we've sat and chat.
Right.
But it was for a good cause and really appreciate it. You guys, we thank you so much. Many thanks for joining us, each of you for joining us today with your questions. In the event that you have questions that you did not want to ask in this open discussion, Dr. Smith Brook email address is below, or you can send it to us and we'll get it to you. You guys remember to take care, and most importantly, remember addressing your mental health does not mean you are mentally weak. Be blessed. Bye-bye.